Hi, Chris here. Uh, this is a lesson on medical issues. When we talk about medical stuff in the bush. So there's two different types of medical issues that you can look at. The one is your first aid side of it, which is something that would be unplanned. You bump your head and you've got a cut on your head, or you cut your hand, or you break a finger, or you do something that you did not expect to do. And that would generally be classified as first aid. And for that, you get a first aid kit. And first aid kit's not something I'm going to discuss now, but first aid kits are quite important to bring along in your vehicle. I carry a first aid kit as well. And that first aid kit will have your bandages, your plasters, thermometers, splints, a few ointments, sunburn stuff, very important, burn shield. Bring burn shield, go to the discount, get yourself some burn shield in the spray can, the normal squeezy spray can, and whatever you forms of it that you normally would use. Burn shield is always a good thing to have in there as well. But most vehicles will have a first aid kit, so between all the vehicles we should come right with what we need in a first aid kit. I've got a few extra things, like a little probe to look into your ear and those type of things that I carry with me. The one important thing that I do carry with me, which I don't think other guides would normally do, is a defibrillator. Now, a defibrillator is something that that you need when you do have a heart attack. So if you have a heart attack, then this is what it looks like on the inside. I open up the plastic box, I connect the pads onto your chest, and I can get your heart started again. Now, if you watch the movies, the action movies, you'll see the guys do heart massage, and suddenly the victim wakes up and he's alright. Now, in real life, it doesn't work like that. If you have a heart attack and your heart is in fibrillation, then you have to defibrilize it, which means it needs an electrical shock just to get it out of the defibrillation. And that's where that little machine comes in. I do carry it with me. I'm trying to use it, so I don't mind using it. I don't want you to have a heart attack, but I am prepared for it if it does happen. And that is part of the first aid stuff. So let's leave first aid things there for now. It's different than your medical considerations. So firstly, if we talk medical things, it's more preventable stuff. Malaria, yellow fever, dysentery and diarrhea, and those type of things. Let's start with the mosquitoes. That is by far the most important thing to look at, because it's the most common one that we have that causes trouble. Malaria is caused by mosquitoes. Yellow fever, same story. So mosquitoes play a very big role in the whole system. The most important thing of this whole discussion after the first aid going into the medical stuff is that I am not a doctor. I'm not a travel physician. I'm not allowed to give you any advice on what to use and what not to use. I can tell you what I do and what I suggest, but you have to visit your doctor to make sure that you are covered for your situation. You might have medication that you use that clashes with some things that I mention, and we don't want that. So we want you to be 100% secure, and therefore you are responsible for your own health, and you do that in conjunction with your physician, not with me. What I'm going to do is purely give you a few ideas of how to better do what you're doing. So if you're going into a malaria area and you're taking prophylactics, that's fine, but you can still keep the mosquitoes off you. You can still make sure that your tent is mosquito proof. So let's start with that then. The first thing that you want to realize is that you cannot get malaria if a mosquito does not bite you. So that's key. You can swim in a malaria infested area and you won't get malaria unless it goes into your bloodstream via a bite, and that bite would typically be a mosquito bite. So the first thing you want to do is keep the mosquitoes off you. So you do get the insect repellents, you get Peaceful Sleep, Tabard, various other natural ones, and the repellents for me is as varying in effectiveness as people are on Earth. Tabard specifically works for me. I do not like the other brands, they don't really do it for me. Tabard for me works well. Many of my guests say they don't use Tabard because it doesn't work for them. So it's got to do with your own genetics and your own system whether Tabard will work for you or not. But this is a insect repellent. So when you get to late afternoon and you're going to sit around the fire tonight, or maybe have a braai or watch the sunset, then you want to get the insect repellent sprayed on you, especially on your legs because mosquitoes tend to stay low, on your arms, exposed areas, and also I just spray the back of my neck for any mosquito that sneaks up behind me so that he's sorted out from there. This does not kill mosquitoes. You don't use this to spray the inside of a tent or inside of a lodge room to get rid of mosquitoes. If you spray this in a room, in a lodge, the mosquitoes will just go to the corners, wait for the smell to disappear, and then they come back again. So keeping the mosquitoes off you is the first important thing. The second important thing is most malaria, or opinions about malaria, is that it happens generally at night when people go to sleep. That is why when the guys go out into Africa with a malaria prevention drives, they hand out mosquito nets. A mosquito net is something that you sleep under. I carry a mosquito net in my vehicle. I always take one with me. If I book into a lodge and I need to sleep somewhere for the night, then I have my mosquito net if the lodge doesn't have a mosquito net. So I have my own one just as a backup. But I would use that in large spaces where I cannot control the mosquitoes. So mosquito nets show you that prevention generally happens when people are sleeping. That's when the mosquitoes are out as well, and therefore when you sleep is probably the most important time to protect yourself. So you can go with a repellent to try and keep the mosquitoes off you, but if you keep your space where you're sleeping sterile in the mosquito sense, it means that if there's no mosquito in that space, it can't bite you, can't get malaria. So you would go with something like insecticide, close your tent up, spray the insecticide, give it 5 minutes to make sure that the insects are dead. This is a Tanzanian version. This one you just buy at the filling stations in Tanzania. So it's the second layer of defense, is to make sure that where you sleep are sterile. If you go into bed and you've sprayed your tent and there's no mosquito in your tent and you know they can't get in, then you could actually have gone for a shower to wash off the tabard. If it bugs you or you don't like it, you don't like the smell, you can wash it off, get in your tent, spray the inside, make sure there's no mosquitoes, and go to sleep. And you should be perfectly fine with that. So mosquitoes, definitely the one thing that you can manage. What people don't think about is inside the vehicle. The door was open. I was scratching around in my vehicle doing something. I left the door open beginning of the night. Mosquitoes came in, they go under the seat and they sit there and wait. It's nice and dark, the air is quiet. Tomorrow morning we are in the vehicles, off we go. Mosquitoes bite you on your ankles. So make sure to spray your vehicle as well. Insecticide inside your vehicle, 10 minutes before departure. Just open up, spray inside, close the doors, and let the mosquitoes die inside. That means you don't get bitten, and if you don't get bitten, you won't get sick. The second part of insects would probably be your tsetse flies. That's much less common for people to get sleeping sickness and diseases from tsetse flies. The tsetse fly bite is extremely painful, and you know when you've been bitten by a tsetse fly. But like with a mosquito, it doesn't mean that you now have sleeping sickness. The disease still has to be transferred. But tsetse flies are generally easier managed. Spraying them with insecticide If you drive in a national park and you're busy taking pictures and the window is open and the flies come in, you can spray them. To try and kill them by slapping them is difficult because they are very tough. So we just spray them. It's always fun when you have tsetse flies in the car because the bite is so sore. Everybody runs for the doom and the insecticides. So tsetse fly is much less of a concern because it's a little bit easier to manage them. Tsetse flies also stay in the bush. So if you go out on Lake Kariba, for example, and you're camping next to the water, that stretch, that 100 meters from the bush to the water is fairly fly free, and you generally don't have issues with tsetse flies there. The third group would be your tick bite fever, so diseases carried by ticks. Now, tick bite fever, first of all, is not something that is bitten into you by the tick. So the tick doesn't carry the disease inside of him, and when he bites you, then you get the disease. The organism sits on the outside of the tick, and when the tick breaks the skin, this organism can go into that bite mark and into your bloodstream. That means that ticks that carry tick bite fever could have any shape and form. They can be flat, they can have white legs, they can have striped legs, they can be small, they can be big. Makes no difference. You can get tick bite fever from pretty much any tick that is out there. So keep the ticks off you. I wear short pants most of my life, so I can feel it when a tick walks up my leg and I can flick it off. If you carry long pants, then make sure that you check yourself at night, especially if you've been in long grass, tall grass. Just make sure that you check for ticks. They normally go to areas where there's a bit of a pinch, like your belt line, your socks, between your toes, straps around your body. So check wherever there's a little bit of a pinch line. That's normally where you'll find them. And look for the small ones. The small ones are also the ones that carry tick bite fever. And if you haven't noticed it, then maybe check your hair as well. It does happen for them to climb into your hair. You normally would feel them, but it is possible to miss them as well. So just be aware of ticks and tick bite fever. It's all dangerous, all lethal diseases. If treated early, you can treat it effectively, but it's very important to try and avoid it rather than having to treat it. The last one would be waterborne disease, which is bilharzia, which is carried in the water, or standing water predominantly. Don't let it fool you, water moving, water standing still, which one has bilharzia, which one doesn't have. That's not the way you determine it. You have to ask the locals and find out regionally where the bilharzia is. Like Malawi has bilharzia in some places it doesn't. You can't see the difference between the water. But fortunately, bilharzia generally is easily treated, and when you get back, there's also no side effects to the treatment, so you can just take a course to make sure that you treat possible bilharzia, if that was the case. The last part of health would be with regards to your inner health, inner as in your gut. Diarrhea, dysentery is something that is very dangerous, not because of the diarrhea, but because of the loss of liquids, the dehydration that you experience. People find diarrhea a embarrassing subject, so they don't tell anybody, and before you know it, you are down on the ground, severely ill because of dehydration. Now, diarrhea and dysentery and those things normally enter your system through your mouth, and what goes into your mouth normally comes from your hands. So an easy way to manage those type of illness and diseases are to keep your hands clean. The sanitizers that you buy, the waterless sanitizers that you buy, is perfect for this. And what I do is 2 weeks before I go into a trip, I start following my regime of not putting my hands on my face without cleaning them. I've got a bottle of sanitizer in my vehicle, I've got a bottle in the kitchen, I've got a bottle in the bathroom, in the bedroom, in my office, and I would just keep my hands clean. once every hour or 2 hours, I just do a squirt, wipe my hands, and I know my hands are constantly clean of any issues. Then when I'm on the trip, I do the same thing, especially if I go to a filling station, I go to a shop, I go to a bank, I go into a national parks office. Wherever I meet anybody, I keep my hands clean. So use the disinfectant, the sanitizer. Use the sanitizer regularly, and you will see that you avoid things like flu and colds and generally diarrhea and those type of things. The other way that you can get those diseases is through the food that you eat. Be careful of the notion that if someone else eats it, then we can eat it also. It doesn't work like that. You do get something they call Delhi belly. If you go into India, you can get diarrhea, and that's not because the food is spicy. Yes, food is spicy, your stomach might not be used to it, but it could also be that the local bugs are just not the same as the ones that you're used to. So same happens if you travel into Africa, same happens if you go from Joburg to Cape Town. Things are slightly different and your stomach doesn't always enjoy it. If you have to buy food on the road and you don't trust the source very much, the best way to do it is to just overcook that food. A little tip from the guides: if they have to buy from a shop that's a little bit dodgy, they might have, not all of them do, I have a pressure cooker with them. The pressure cooker raises the temperature of the food. That's why it cooks faster. So the higher temperature gives you a much safer food that you produce. So if you're going into areas that you're not sure about food quality and what you're going to get, pack the pressure cooker. It sounds funny, but it's really the safest way to do it. Lastly, if you buy fresh fruit and things like that, remember the skin on the outside might be contaminated with something. So if you're going to peel it, then your hands are going to transfer the outside to the inside as you are peeling this fruit. So it's not necessarily safe. The best way to do it is to take a jig solution. You take a liter of water, a teaspoon of jig, and you just wash fruits and everything with the solution. So typically, if you enjoy fresh fruit and vegetables and things, then you would have a section which is safe to use, and then you have a quarantine section in your vehicle. Anything you buy off the street goes into your quarantine section, and nothing gets transferred unless it's been washed in this jig solution. That is a bit extreme, but it is the safest way to do it. Once it's been washed in this jig solution, the outside of bananas, the outside of oranges, of apples, of whatever you buy, if you wash the outside with the jig solution, it will kill all the germs, and then it can go into the safe zone, and that one you can handle, you can peel, you can eat, and you can enjoy it. And with that, you should be fairly safe as far as your general health goes. Mosquitoes not going to bite you. You're going to be careful of the ticks, and you're going to watch what you eat and keep your hands clean. You do those things, and traveling in Africa is actually a breeze. Enjoy the food and enjoy the travel.